Hi, it's Brad here, and today I just wanted to show you the current jewel in our crown, our mighty mango tree, and what she's up to at the moment. So look at this beauty. Goes way up there. It's much bigger than our house. Towers above our house, and this year was a fruiting year, and I think it's just a generally good fruiting year this year because there's been a couple other mango trees in the area that have produced a lot, but I wanted to show you what she's been up to in terms of producing fruit, a couple of things that we've done, and just generally how we lazily look after this guy in terms of harvesting and just general maintenance. So if you look around the ground, you can see there's a ton of mangoes that have just been dropping like crazy, but most of them have been helped. If you have a look at this, we get a lot of fruit bats of an evening, so they come and have a nibble, and they've enjoyed a bit of that and a bit of that one, maybe, I think so, at the end. So they get a bit and they ruin a fair bit of fruit, but I just treat that as something that there's also some positives in that as well. So fruit bats come along, they're part of the ecology, of course, which we're always trying to encourage. So I just take this one, I'll throw him in there. He'll fertilise that bit of ground, and that'll add to the whole thing. But in terms of the fruit bats, there are some hidden benefits with most ecology, like birds and everything else. Now for them, their food diet is mostly just our mangoes, but they add to the ecology, and they also obviously eat and manure around the area, so they feed the soil as well. So I'm not too bothered about sharing some of this stuff as long as we get some of it. So what I do is we do pick some from the tree when they start to get their first blush, but if I'm lucky, like this guy here, have a look at that. Perfect. So a lot of these, we've had some heavy rain and maybe a little bit of wind disturbance, so a lot of these guys are just dropping down, and I found quite a few of them, so I'll just bring you out into the light here where I'm keeping a pile of these guys. Look at that, beautiful, huh? And this tree is kind of the mother of this whole area, and she is a sort of canopy to a bunch of other things that I'm trying to get started in around this area. This year, one of the things that was different is that we brought in a whole bunch of wood chips. Now you can see a big pile here that's a part of it, and an interesting fact here is you can see a lot of mushrooms that have started to sprout out of that area. So dig in there a little bit. This pile's just been sitting there kind of composting down a little bit, so if you dig in a little bit, you see there's kind of a richness. But the mushrooms, they're only there and they come and go every now and then. They might only last a day or something. Then they're certainly not edible things, but what they do indicate is that there's a good amount of fungus in there, and the fungus are really the teeth of the soil in nature, and they sort of decompose a lot of the woody material, so they're really helpful. So I'm always happy to see those things around. But one of the things we did is we got a whole bunch of wood chips that you might have seen on previous posts, and we've added them as a mulch around this area, and what it's done is it's really helped with a lot of water retention. And I haven't really watered this area at all. I mean, certainly don't need to water the mango tree. She's very well established. She was here before we bought the house. At least 20 years old, I would say, maybe older. Some sweet potato there in the picture. But also in and around here, we've got I've been turned this soil into pretty heavy clay with the addition of wood chips and various plantings, and not much else really. some green manure crops and digging them in and putting wood chips here. And if I don't know if you can see this very well on camera, but we'll try. If I dig into this, and it's very wet at the moment, so it's going to be quite waterlogged. It's still quite a fungal based soil, but this was just full of weeds, mostly onion weed, trying to help the soil regenerate, I guess. And it sort of indicated a few deficiencies as well in minerals or macro and micronutrients. But with the addition of the wood chips here, we've ended up with some pretty nice soil. Now it still needs a lot more organic matter, but that's part of what the wood chips are there to solve. So we can always add compost and do a bunch of things, but it's quite lush and quite diverse now. So if you look around here, we've got out this whole bed, a bit of sweet potato there, some bush beans. This is red clover, not in flower at the moment. The back there we've got comfrey. These things here are some old coriander and dill, stuff that we've let go and just left there. The bees and insects seem to still find a use for those old plants, and they'll eventually decompose and fall in. Some perennial basil, more bush beans, loads of nasturtium up around here. Most of this is edible or medicinal. A bit of tansy here, I believe that's tansy. More red clover. We're growing, things you might often recognise as weeds. So things like this, I think it's plantago minor, and that's great you can actually use that medicinally in a number of ways. But one of its uses is as a bandage for cuts and wounds and stuff like that. You can also use it in tea for other medicinal purposes. So there's loads of good stuff there. There's various vining plants. Again, this is a Madeira vine. It's classified as a weedy plant as well, but it's actually very edible, and you can cook it as a spinach or put it in soups. So that's going to grow quite well. It's just a matter of cutting it back when it gets established and using it. Similarly, we've got over here, we have got a perennial type of spinach, which is more of a heat-loving spinach, and this is a Ceylon spinach. That's starting to vine up there. We've got yarrow. That's another herbaceous plant that's quite medicinal, but also nutritious, and we throw that into salads and whatever else. It's also a good dynamic accumulator, so like the comfrey, it'll pull up a lot of nutrients and minerals from the subsoil with a deep taproot, and that's taken off around here with the wood chips for some reason. They're supposed to be good under fruit trees, so that's always good to have. Things like sage, and this is feverfew, I believe. Sometimes I forget what's there because I try and fill all these niches and make sure there's as much growing as possible, and just come out and use them as we need to. Above here is yacon. So yacon is more of a root harvest, so it's a long-term grower, but that's doing fairly well under there, even though a lot of this area doesn't get a lot of sun during the day. So there's quite a bit of a cover from the overstory of the mango tree. And another weed in there, that's nettle. You might be aware of nettle or stinging nettle. I'm not going to touch that one because I'll get a little bit of a sting, but it's not too bad anyway. But yeah, obviously you're probably familiar with using that in teas. More nasturtium, loads of that. You can eat the flowers, the leaves, the whole plant. Back over here where you see the sweet potato starting to establish, you want to use that as a ground cover, but it's also very useful. The leaves you can eat in salads. So there's a lot of these plants that you can eat that you might be used to, in the case of a sweet potato, you might be used to eating the effectively the tuber, the sweet potato that you know of in the supermarket. But you can also eat the leaves and throw them into salads, so that's all very well. So you can see, just back on the mango story, you can see there's loads of mangoes have dropped. So my job is really, we'll pick a few from the tree. A lot of them are too high to get to be honest, because it's such a great old tree. And look at that one, there's another one that I think just dropped off before I started the video, and that's a bit more firm. They may get a little bruise here from falling down, but any of the bad bits we just cut off. It's not a big deal. We're not going for aesthetically pleasing fruit most of the time. We're going for nutritious, tasty pieces of fruit, so that's the important thing to us. That looks pretty good anyway, so I'll take this one, put it with the others. But yeah, that's just a quick look around at this mighty ally of ours, who does many wonderful things. Doesn't always bring us fruit, but certainly gives us a lot of shade for the house, a beautiful microclimate, and an opportunity for some different varieties of plants to grow underneath her and produce many layers in what we're moving towards in sort of more forested sort of garden in this area. So hopefully that was useful. Thanks for spending the time with me this morning, and yeah, I'll see you soon.